just one more minute and then we'll get started. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to get to the workshop that we're planning on coming so they don't miss anything. So I'll just give it one more minute. Okay, I think we'll get started with some introductions here. Well, I want to thank you very much for coming to this morning's workshop, Marketing Your Business Website SEO or Search Engine Optimization Techniques in Google My Business. We are doing this workshop in conjunction with PV Advertising. So I am Kurt Walczak. I am a business consultant with the Northland Small Business Development Center, and we are putting on this workshop together with PV Advertising, and we are very happy to have them with us today. And I do want to mention that PV Advertising does the marketing for the Small Business Development Center. They have helped us create a brand new website, and they help us with our social media marketing and our newsletter and all those wonderful things that marketing can help you do. And they're doing an excellent job at that. I'm really happy that they're here with us today. A little bit about PV Advertising. So Pearson & Von Elb is a full-service advertising and graphic design agency located in Duluth, Minnesota. For more than 20 years, Pearson & Von Elb has provided marketing services for the Duluth Superior region and beyond. We have two Pearson & Von Elb team members here with us today to talk about SEO or search engine optimization and how best to improve your online rankings. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brianna Manning, and she'll introduce herself and her role at Pearson Von Elb and Caitlin.
Thank you, Kurt. We're super excited to be here as well. And yes, I'm Brianna Manning. I'm actually an account manager at Pearson & Von Elb Advertising. And so what that means is I get to go around and meet with all of our clients and talk about their pain points and find solutions and bring all of that information back to the office and talk to people like Caitlin and Melissa, who she's a website designer here, as well as a variety of other people. And we come up with solutions for people. And Caitlin's our digital coordinator, our digital marketing coordinator. So I'll hand things over to her.
Yeah, I'm Caitlin Schaft. As Brianna and Kurt had mentioned, I am the digital marketing coordinator at Pearson & Von Elb. So my role, I kind of do all things, as the title suggests, all things digital. So I have a hand in a lot of SEO for our clients. I do a lot of website designing with Melissa, as Brianna had mentioned, and I also have a hand in social media marketing and developing social media posts for our clients. So as Brianna said, we're both very happy to be here and to share some of our insights into website SEO and Google My Business.
Great.
So we'll dive right into it.
One other reminder is, if you have questions, for those of us that have just joined us, you can type them into the chat feature. And we would like to go through the presentation first and then answer the questions through a Q&A session at the end. So type your questions into chat if you have questions, and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. Thank you. Sorry, Brianna, go ahead.
Nope, that's all right. We can just get started. I know both Caitlin and I were pretty passionate about this subject, and so I don't want to make this too lengthy. So search engine optimization is an ongoing process, so it's going to be tough. We wouldn't be able to go over everything in an hour anyway, so we're just going to go over some basics that people can do to their own websites to improve their page rankings. And today we're going to focus on Google because Google does control, I believe it's like 92% of the search engine market worldwide. It's about 72% of the desktop market and like 92% of the mobile market. So they're really worth talking about. So we're going to put our focus there today. And going into that, Google My Business is a big part of your local search engine optimization, and Caitlin does most of that for our clients. And so I'm going to have her start off the presentation talking a little bit about Google My Business.
Yeah, so to start things off right off the bat, one of the greatest tools that any business can utilize online is their Google My Business profile. This is a free profile that you can create on behalf of your business that not only helps put your business's information at the forefront of search engines, but it can also help increase your leads. So just as an example for anyone listening who may not be familiar with Google My Business, it's that detailed profile of a business that pops up when you're searching specific terms in Google. So in this particular example on screen here, we typed in seafood restaurants, Duluth, Minnesota, and the top 3 results popped up with the Boat Club restaurant, as you can see, being ranked first. And then when we click on that result, when we click on the Boat Club, an additional profile pops up with even more helpful information regarding their business, which you can see there. You can see you can reserve a table. They've got their location, their address, their hours, and all things related to that. So as I mentioned, it's free to set up, and it really should take no longer than 20 minutes to initially set up. It is worth noting, however, that even if it only takes a handful of minutes to set up initially, time must be set aside every once in a while to update your information and any other important details. So it should not be neglected. You should get in there every chance you have to update important information. So there are a lot of benefits that come along with an active Google My Business profile, like being able to provide website searchers basic but very important information about your business. Like I mentioned with the Boat Club, you can have your hours listed, your address, your website, and even things like if you require a mask at your business. So not only that, but you also have the ability to interact with your customers by post, photos, and responding to reviews, which we will get into a little further detail later on in this presentation. So for just a little bit more information on Google My Business, it is also worth mentioning that your business profile or website rankings differ depending on which search engine you're using. So we've got Bing, Google, and Yahoo pulled up here on the slide, and each search engine pulls their information about your business from different sources. So for example, as you can see, we typed in seafood restaurants, Duluth, Minnesota, into each of these search engines, and the Boat Club popped up on each platform it's in the top 1 or 2 ranking spots on the maps. But you can see that information is pulled from different sources from each of these platforms. As you can see on Bing, the customer reviews are pulled from TripAdvisor, and Google's customer reviews are pulled from Google. And Yahoo's customer reviews are pulled from Yelp. So when it comes down to it, it just takes a little bit of research to learn how to improve your rankings on each of these search engines. But today, like Brianna mentioned, we're just going to be focused entirely on Google, as 92% of all online searches on mobile platforms are completed on Google. So that's where our focus will lie today. So in terms of setting up your Google My Business profile, all you need to do is visit business.google.com. And if you don't already have one, you will need to create a Google-based email account to get things started. And you'll also be asked to provide information to prove that you are the rightful owner of the business. So depending on the circumstances of your account or the security requirements of your industry, you will most likely be given a verification code via regular mail, email, or text that you must input into your website to input into your Google My Business profile to ensure that you're verified and that you are the rightful owner. There is also a little new piece in 2021 related to Google My Business. Google is now requiring some businesses to add a physical address and not simply have a service area to their Google My Business profile. So Google is doing this as a way to reduce category misuse across millions and millions and millions of business profiles. So when you set up your Google My Business profile, you're asked to have a physical address, or if you cater to a specific service area. And you're also asked to select a category that your business falls into. So for example, on the screen here, someone listed their business as a Pilates studio, but they did not have a physical address. They just listed themselves as a service area. And for most people, when I hear the word studio, I assume that it's actually a physical location. So Google came back and stated that if they wanted their category to be listed as a Pilates studio, you need to have a physical address instead of a service area. So in their case, if they wanted to keep a service area, Pilates instructor versus Pilates studio would be a much more appropriate category listing for them. So for most users, if you ever see this restriction, it's really just an indicator from Google My Business that they would like you to choose a more appropriate category for your business. And Google will prompt you, will let you know that these categories need to be changed if needed. So, and the last kind of piece of information we have regarding Google My Business, there are a couple final things we'd like to say to wrap up this topic. First off, like I mentioned, listing your business in a relevant primary category is very important. Google My Business allows you to list a primary category and then several subcategories. But like I said, ensure that you are not including irrelevant categories or categories that are not important for your business. Secondly, you want to ensure that you do not neglect your profile. Make sure that you're staying active. Continuously update your profile with timely information, photos and videos, post updates, updated hours, etc. A neglected profile can severely confuse and frustrate searchers who aren't sure if your information is correct or updated. I know this has happened to me several times. I've gone on a website and I've seen their business hours, and then I look them up on Google and I see completely different business hours related on their business profile, which can be incredibly frustrating. You don't know the circumstances of when they're open, when they're not. So that's why it's very important to keep things updated. And
Caitlin,
lastly,
a real short story.
yeah,
I
go right
looked at
ahead.
the Google My Business profile. The business was an hour and a half away. I'm not going to say who it was, but they were they were an hour and a half away. And my wife and I drove there. We were going to do some shopping at the place, and we got there, and it was closed. And
Yes.
it's all because their business profile was not accurate. And boy, do you think that we went back to that business when they were open?
I
No,
would
I don't
imagine
think
no.
so. Just
Yeah.
because we understood it was almost like we're open, but we're not open. We're open, but the door is shut, so you can't come in.
Yeah. It's
And people
incredibly
don't
frustrating.
realize what kind of information that they have out there. And so it's very, very important to take care of that. Sorry for interrupting, but I had
No,
that personal
absolutely. I mean,
experience and I thought it was
that's
just
just a,
perfect.
it's just a testament to the fact that it's so important to keep things updated, or else you run into a situation where you show up and they're not actually open. So, and the last little bit of information here, you need to avoid duplicate listings. Do not make a new profile if your business moves locations. All you need to do is update your business information, your address. Make sure that you also find your business listings on other platforms like Yelp, the Better Business Bureau, social media as well, and update all of those so it's consistent across the board. Having a duplicate listing violates Google's terms of service, and there could certainly be repercussions if you have more than one listing. So that's kind of our little bit of information we have on Google My Business. If you have any further questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. But with that, I'll hand things over to Brianna and she'll dig a little deeper into SEO and sitemaps.
All right. So for those of you who don't know, sitemaps are files that list all of the important pages on your website. So we know that ranking higher is the biggest benefit of search engine optimization, because most people have a tendency to click on one of the very first top results after they do their search. So ranking higher is usually going to translate into more traffic going to your website. Now, Google uses web crawlers to discover the publicly available websites, and these crawlers look at web pages and they follow links on those pages just like you do when you're browsing the internet. And so they go from link to link and they bring all of that data back to Google's servers. And so most new websites don't have any links yet, or they don't have very many links yet. So it takes a little bit more time for Google to discover them. However, you can move things along a little bit faster on your own by submitting your sitemap directly to Google. And you can do this by creating a free Google Search Console account and then submitting your sitemap through there. So if you've hired somebody to design your website, the chances are they've already done this for you. But you can check that out on your own by typing in the word site, a colon, your website URL without the www dot and then .com. So like, for example, in our case, it would be the word site, colon, pvadvertising.com. And from there, a whole list of all of your categories will show up, and you can check to see how things are worded and exactly, what information is pulling from that. So that's a little bit about kind of, the skeleton of your website, searches. So, but we'll go on to another important aspect of your website, and that's your website page speed. So anybody who's searching the internet, we all use the internet, right? And it's very frustrating when a page doesn't load quickly, and you're going to leave that page, that website pretty quickly if it's taking too long. And so that's something that Google really uses to rate your website in its rankings. And some simple factors that control that page speed are things like your website hosting provider, exactly who you use, your image sizes, your embedded video sizes, and then of course your sitemap that we just talked about. So fortunately, there are several really easy to use tools that can help you determine your site speed. And then they'll also suggest some changes for you on what you can do to make some improvements. The one that we suggest to people is to use Google's page speed insights. The whole point of page optimization is to make these search engines happy, right? So this is a really good place to start. This tool will list off any problem areas that you have with also a brief explanation of what's going on. And then at that point, you can go ahead and start fixing some of those issues. So along the same line, I know I just had mentioned in website page speed about optimizing your images. So if you want to go to the next slide, I can talk a little bit about the optimizing of your images. When you run this report, you're going to find most likely on Google PageSpeed Insights that you have photos or graphics that are not optimized for the greatest performance on your website. So they're going to point those out for you, and they're going to show you exactly how you can fix those. So there's a little, I don't know if we have an example of it, but it's very clear when you go to the Google PageSpeed Insights, there's a Learn More tab there, and that'll give you practically a step-by-step instructions on exactly how to fix that. So another important thing to do to your photos and to your graphics is to have alternative text, or also called alt text. And this tells Google and the other search engines exactly what that image is, what the information is that goes with that. And so a lot of times your keyword is on there. And if your website is made with WordPress or Wix or Squarespace or any of those other various platforms, it's pretty easy to add that alt text to your images. And you just want to remember to be really descriptive when you do that. And again, use your keywords when doing that. So on the topic of keywords, your website content is obviously the real meat of your website. You need to give people something that they want to read and any information that they're looking for. So high quality content is really about creating the pages that increase a person's time on your page. It's going to lower your bounce rate. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later as well. But it gives people a high quality experience on your page. So the number one priority is ensuring that your users have that best possible experience. If your website is full of low quality, irrelevant content, you're going to struggle to rank on Google. So first and foremost, the most beneficial thing that you can do for your website is to collect a list of keywords. and then begin plugging those into your website headers and using them for your content. These keywords should probably be obvious words or phrases that you know that your customers are searching for. Personally, I like to write my content first because I feel that it's a little bit more authentic and it's not centered around those keywords. However, I've been doing this for a really long time, so I kind of know what those words are that people are looking for. But even after I get done writing the content, I'll go back into the keyword searches and I'll review my content and see if I should be using some different words in there that, you know, I find that people are looking for. So there's a lot of tools out there that can help you find those keywords. And we use SpyFu, but we use the paid version of SpyFu. It's a little bit more of a robust program. There's a free tool out there called the Google, imagine that, Google Keyword Planner. And again, it's free. All you need is to have a Google account. So there's a lot of different opinions out there about word count and how many words you should have on your pages in order to rank well on Google or the other search engines. And I found that if you just sit down and you write high quality content and you give people the information that they're looking for and you explain it clearly and you give enough detail, that usually you hit that word count. You know, you don't want to have just a couple of sentences on there that, you know, says, you know, we're really great people, come, you know, see us. It doesn't give people any real information. So if you give people the information, the word count will come. The one thing that you should keep in mind though when you're writing your content is that you don't want to stuff your content full of keywords. So you don't want to be too repetitive because of course that doesn't make for an enjoyable reading experience and it'll likely send people away from your page. So, you know, again, even though your keywords are important, make sure that there's meaning behind it and fresh content. You can have a website that's been around for a very, very long time as long as you keep, you know, the content fresh on it. It'll do better than brand new websites. Even Caitlin and I will review our own website often and go through some of the old blogs and either update them or delete them because again, search engine optimization changes so rapidly that we might write an article that's irrelevant 6 months later. So we should remove that from our site because Google sees that and it's no longer relevant to people, so it should be removed. And then speaking of blogs, it's a great way of keeping your content fresh and giving people really update information. They also get to know you a little bit better. And I know that it can be difficult to write blogs. You know, you've spent all day working on your business, helping your customers, providing your service or your product. And then the last thing you want to do is sit down and blog about it. But it really is pretty valuable to your website. And you can make it really kind of fun and you know, make it like you're talking to people, and it's a very personal way to engage with your audience. So again, you know, when you're blogging, make sure that you're using relevant keywords there as well. So again, that brings everything into your overall user experience. And this is probably my favorite topic because again, I'm the account manager. So I'm all about our clients having, you know, really great user experiences for their customers. And so this is something I really kind of dig into quite a bit. So, you know, if your overall user experience isn't up to par, that's what's going to affect your whole page. And people are just going to leave your page, and your bounce rate is going to be really high because Google's going to see that they're not sticking around. So in addition to, you know, your page loading quickly and having all that useful information that we talked about, it also needs to be really easy to navigate. That means that your website should be able to have, you know, 3-4 clicks. People are finding what they're looking for. Really large websites, it's a little bit more difficult to do that. However, you know, using proper menu layout and things like that will make it a lot easier for people. But large websites can have some issues with ranking well if there's too many pages on the site. So another important aspect of that is spelling and grammar. Nobody wants to read anything with typos. I don't care where the article is. I don't care if it's in a billboard or if it's a radio ad or a television ad or on the internet. Nobody wants to see typos and poor grammar. So that'll also add to a poor user experience. I recommend too that instead of just having paragraphs upon paragraphs full of information on your website, that if you really want people to pay attention to what you're talking about and have some clear takeaways, that you could use some bullet points, you could use some numbered lists, just to make it a little bit more simple and clear. And it also kind of breaks up the pages a little bit. And then you should make sure that your content is, immediately visible, from that first page, exactly what you want people to see and know what you're about. It should be right there as soon as they visit your page. So again, if a website isn't easy to navigate, it's going to rank poorly in Google. So overall, when you get done with your content and you've created your website, I like to ask myself a few questions, whether it's for a client or our own websites. Is this website valuable to people? Is it accessible to people? Is it credible? Is it findable? Is it usable? And if you can answer those questions, then most likely you've just developed a good website. And just one more note on the accessible part, having an ADA compliant website is really important as well. It lets all users be able to have a good experience on your website. And that's just something that you should want to do anyway, but Google also gives a lot of credit to that as well.
Yeah, so kind of moving on to another section that's important to SEO. You'll want to make sure that your contact information on your website and also on your social media is consistent and relevant. It's very important that you avoid having any missing or outdated contact information on these platforms, kind of like I mentioned earlier in the previous slides related to Google My Business. First and foremost, ensure that your contact information accurately lists your business name, address, phone number, email, and any other important details related to your business. And you also want to make sure that this contact information is listed as text on your website and not as a simple image that you just plugged into a page on your website. You want to make sure it's actual text. Listing your information as text allows search engines the ability to easily crawl, read, and understand your contact information. And Google also takes several key measures to ensure the accuracy of your information. So Google will compare the information listed on your website to the information listed on your Google My Business profile page. And if your website and your profile aren't displaying the same exact contact information, you'll want to edit your website and or your profile to make them consistent with one another and also to avoid those frustrated customers. Google doesn't want to show incorrect information, obviously, in its search results, and having those conflicting details is a red flag in Google's book. So moving on from contact information on your websites and socials, we also want to talk a little bit about optimizing your site for mobile use. So obviously it's 2021 and more people are using their phones or tablets to search for local businesses on the go. And because of this, it's important, and it has been for several years now, to optimize your website for mobile devices. Google is a mobile-first indexing search engine. This means that your mobile website will be the primary website that Google analyzes for ranking purposes. So if your site is not mobile optimized, you will be ranked lower. That's a given. So if you are not sure if your site is mobile optimized, Google has a really simple and free test that you can use. All you need to do is search Google mobile friendly test. There's a screenshot right here on the screen that shows what that looks like. Just type in Google mobile friendly test and then input your website URL and you will immediately see your results. You'll either be told that you're a green light, your page is mobile friendly, or you'll see some red text that says your page is not mobile friendly. We also just wanted to add a few pieces of data regarding search engine rankings on mobile versus desktop. So on the left here, we found a survey done by SEMrush that showed that 31% of URLs that you see on your desktop on Google search results completely disappeared from Google when searching the same thing from a mobile phone or a tablet. So what that's telling us is that the results that we're seeing on our laptops or desktops, so if we pull up our laptops right now and type something in, there's a good chance that the results that we see typing the same thing on our phone will be very different. So that's very important to keep in mind. And that just goes to show that Google is a mobile first indexer. So it's important to cater to mobile as well. And then on the right here, we just have a graph that shows desktop versus mobile versus tablet traffic share on Google for 2021 so far, January through July. And mobile and desktop are the blue and the green lines at the top there. And they've been consistently overlapping one another in terms of overall traffic for several years. So people are still using their desktops to search for things on Google, but it is still very important to make sure you're optimized for those millions and millions and millions of people that are mobile searchers as well. Moving on from mobile optimized websites, we also wanted to talk a little bit about high quality relevant external links. An external link is a link created when one website links to another. External links have a lot of different names. Sometimes they're called backlinks or inbound links, but they are essentially links from other high quality relevant websites have always been a major factor in SEO. So the first step is we always recommend you get your business listed in quality relevant directories online. Directories can help lay a foundation of links, and they also provide citations, which are mentions of your name, your address, your phone number, etc. But directory links are not enough to really increase your rankings in a competitive industry. Over the long term, the best way to attract quality links is to publish and promote great content. So the best way to get other websites to link to your website is essentially to create something worth linking to. Links are like recommendations, so you want to have content that will attract the attention of quality sites. So you'll also want to absolutely avoid buying external links. Buying backlinks is a big no-no in Google's books. It's a violation of Google's guidelines. That means that you'll get a Google penalty if you get caught buying external links. And such a Google penalty will absolutely kill your search engine ranking. So while the thought of having a massive amount of backlinks is really nice, they've got to be natural, they've got to be authentic, they cannot be bought. So, or else you will be in the doghouse with Google. So there are also several ways to check to see how many backlinks you currently have. Websites like Ahrefs and SEMrush are some popular external link checkers. On the example we have here on the screen, we used Ubersuggest, which is a paid platform that provides information related to the number of backlinks and what those backlinks are, where they're coming from, and that is from Ubersuggest. So those are a couple popular platforms related to backlink checkers. So. And we also want to make sure in relation to SEO that you maintain a relevant social presence. So Google has come right out and stated that social media does not directly contribute to search engine rankings, but it is correlated. So you'll want to share the content you create on your website to your social platforms. So if you make a blog post or you publish an important piece of information on a particular web page, you obviously likely put a lot of work into creating it, and not sharing that piece of information or that blog is essentially a bit of a waste. So social media gives you access to a much wider audience than you'd have on your website alone. So ultimately, the more people visiting and engaging with your site's content, the more benefits for your search engine rankings. And bringing in more traffic to your content isn't the only reason to share it on social media. With more eyes on your content, you increase the chances of someone linking to it, like we just talked about, those external links. Backlinks are a huge part of SEO, as I stated, and they show search engines that other people find the content on your website valuable and trusting. So all in all, social media channels can be a huge asset if you're looking to build trust with your audience and boost your online reputation and help those search engine rankings. So with that, I'll pass it on to Brianna.
Well, we can't really talk about website design and SEO without at least mentioning meta descriptions. So if you don't know what a meta description or meta tag is, there's an example there on our slide. And that's a personalized way of summarizing the content of your page. So you'll want to include the keywords that you use somewhere probably in the beginning of the sentence. Make sure that it's worded in a very natural way without, again, repeating that keyword unnecessarily. Keep it original, and usually around 140 to 160 characters. So that's just a real brief touch on meta descriptions. I think we could probably have a whole webinar on that topic. So just point that out. The other thing that's very important to SEO are online customer reviews. Now, this is something, again, excuse me, that's difficult for people to get. You can ask people for it, whether you see them in person or on the phone, or you send them an email or through social media, but people are busy. And we all know that it's much harder to get a positive review than it is to get a negative review. People expect a positive experience. And so you really do have to ask them to give that feedback back to you. We have found in our business, because we're service-based and there's a lot of emails back and forth with our clients, that we can simply send an email with a link directly to that Google review that says, you know, we've really enjoyed working with you on this project. If you could take a few minutes just to rate us, we would really appreciate it. It would really help us out a lot. And the return on that is pretty good for us. And then also you need to respond to those reviews. And Google wants you to respond to both the positive reviews and the negative reviews. And so what do you do if you get a negative review? Well, you have to answer it. We have one example. A client of ours had somebody that left a review that just simply said, disappointing experience. And that was it. So we did some digging. You know, I called the employees. Nobody happened to know who this person was. They couldn't figure it out. And so we put together a response for them. I'll just give you an example. That was, you know, the reviewer's name. Thank you for posting your review. We're sorry to hear that your experience was not of the quality that you expected. We'd like an opportunity to investigate your feedback further. Please call us at, you know, this number, and we can work to resolve this issue as quickly as possible. So the client didn't take any accountability because they didn't know what they were taking accountability for, but people reading that review, they're not going to know that there wasn't a problem. So they at least addressed it and showed that they wanted to fix it. So, and actually in that case, it did get fixed quite quickly. So the person was just, I think, having a bad day overall. And that happens a lot. So another thing that will help your search engine optimization is having your SSL and privacy policy. So SSL stands for Secure Sockets Layer. It's, if you want to know if your website is secure or not, it'll say up in your URL HTTPS and not HTTP. It also will have a little lock icon there that'll show that your website is secure. If your website is not secure, it's a pretty easy fix, and it really does help your rankings. And you just call your hosting provider and they'll add that to your website. That's pretty simple. Another thing that you should do is to have a privacy policy, and that should be on every page of your website. We usually put them down in the footers of our clients' pages. And basically, it tells people not only are you in compliance with Google's terms and services and with third parties, but it also shows that your website and your business is credible. So it usually has, it tells people what your website collects, what it uses and shares, what cookies and pixels your website uses, and it also has some contact information there if anybody has any questions or concerns about how you're using their information. So, to kind of start to wrap up the presentation, at the end of all of this, you put in all of this work to your website. Now, how do you know that it's working? Well, if you haven't ever seen Google Analytics, you definitely want to add that to your website as well. And I love this tool. It really gives you an idea of what people are doing when they get to your site. It's a free tracking tool that's offered by Google, and you'll see number of visitors, where they're located. Are they searching your website on a desktop? Are they using their mobile device? How long are they staying? And I really suggest that you take a look at that bounce rate. The lower the number on your bounce rate, the better it is, because that means that people are not bouncing as quickly, and so they're staying on your site, and they're really looking at your information. And that's something that I spend a lot of time on with our own sites and the sites of our clients, because if there's a high bounce rate, there's something wrong. So either people are ending up at your website by accident, which is really bad, because then you've got some poor keywords going on and things like that, or they get to your site and maybe your pages are loading slowly, or the content isn't engaging, but there's something wrong. And so that's a really easy way to figure that out. So that's a way to make some necessary adjustments. And again, you'll be able to get some tips on how to do that there as well.
Yeah. Again, as we wrap up the presentation here, we also have listed here all the resources that we mentioned throughout the presentation. So if you'd like to review this presentation after we're done, these are all the resources that can help you get started, all the ones that we mentioned. So that concludes the presentation on marketing your business on Google My Business and other SEO techniques. We would like to extend a huge thank you to Kurt and the Northland Small Business Development Center for collaborating with us today and providing us a place to share some information and insights. Melissa couldn't be here today as a part of the presentation, but she's a huge part of our team and is the designer. So yeah, we're happy to be a team and share any insights. And if you have any further questions beyond the questions that were added in the chat, we'd be happy to answer any further questions even after this presentation commences. So thank you for joining us today and listening.
Wow, what a lot of information. Holy smokes. If I could just put that all in my head in about 2 minutes and say, oh, here I go. So
Yes.
I'm really glad that you did this. Thank you so much. There's so much good information there to take a look at. Just as a reminder to everybody, we are recording this and we will have it on our YouTube channel maybe tomorrow, I think, after we get the recording finished up, and we'll get it on our YouTube channel for you. So if you want to go back and look at it, if you couldn't, write down those links that they had at the end there and say, oh, geez, I'm not going to get that. That'll be there on our YouTube channel if you want to go back and take a look at that. And as an extra plug-in, and one more thing, I would ask you to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You can go out and watch the video without subscribing, but if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, when we have some other good stuff out there, that'll come up when you're searching YouTube for those things. So let's get to some questions that we had during the presentation. So let's see. One person was asking how to fix information on Bing and Yahoo search engine results. I'm not exactly sure what information we're fixing, but I imagine, does Bing and Yahoo have, like Google has a Google My Business, does Bing and Yahoo have a place that you can go to change your information?
Do you have any insight on that, Brianna? We were mainly focused on Google today, but
No.
Yeah, it absolutely, it does have a spot where you can update the information. I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I couldn't give like a step-by-step, but I don't think it's difficult. In fact, if you guys want to go on to a couple other things, I might just see if I can refresh my memory here.
Another question that we have in the chat is, if I am virtual, what should I use as a physical address? I don't like using my personal if I don't need to. I do have a PO box. Is it okay for me to put that in?
well, the nice thing is Google still allows those service area locations. You don't have to have a physical address. What matters in this aspect is that you have the correct category attached to your business. So if you haven't received any notification from Google My Business, or if you're thinking of setting up a Google My Business profile for your business, you can attempt to make a service area business. You don't have to have your PO box. You don't have to have a physical address, but just ensure that your category fits the requirements. And if it doesn't fit the requirements right off the bat, then Google will let you know. And in that case, you might have to do a little bit a little bit more digging on if a physical address or adding your PO box would be the best move for you if Google doesn't accept the category that you believe you'd like your business to fall into. So it is still possible to have a service area business. Just make sure that
I ran into a client with the SBDC the other day that kind of had the same kind of thing. What they did is they went to, I think it's UPS. I don't want to advertise UPS here, but the mailbox store or whatever. And for a monthly fee, they allowed them to have a physical address there instead of just a PO box. I don't know if Google accepts that or if that's a way around that or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So another question, I'm going to go through the chat questions first, and then I'll get back to the Q&A questions. So if you have a question in Q&A, don't worry, I will get to that. What if you have more than one location?
So if you have more than one location, Google My Business listings relate entirely to physical locations. So if you have 2 physical locations, you are eligible for 2 separate Google My Business listings. It is important, and it will help you in the long run if you have a separate phone number for these 2 business locations. You greatly lessen the risk of accidental profile merges by ensuring that the address and the phone number are unique to each location. So you can have 2 different locations. Just ensure that the addresses are obviously different, and that try your best to have a different phone number, or you run the risk of having those profiles potentially merge. That's not a given, but it could happen. So
that's a good tip on the phone numbers.
yes.
So another question is, you said to check with BBB and who else can you check to make sure that your information is correct?
Yeah, so you can check the Better Business Bureau. You'll wanna update your information on there. Yelp is another big one that a lot of people check out, that you'll want to make sure that your information is correct on there, and also your social media profiles, because lots of times people start at your Google My Business profile, they go to your website, and then they lead into your social media profiles if you have those social icons on your website. So you'll want to make sure that you update that information as well. Those are some of the big ones, but if you have any other platforms or any other directory listings that you're on, you'll want to make sure that those are updated as well.
Okay. I had a question here. Somebody was asking what our YouTube channel is. The best way to go there or to get to our YouTube channel is to go to northlandsbdc.org, and up in the right-hand corner, you'll see the YouTube icon. You can click on that. That's the easiest way to find that. Yep. And I'll give you another behind that. The reason we want to get people to subscribe to our YouTube channel is once you get, from what I understanding, and Caitlin, correct me if I'm wrong, once you get 100 subscribers, you can have a vanity URL. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And that's what we want. So then we can say youtube.com/NorthlandSBDC.
Yes.
And that's a lot easier. But right now we can't do that because we don't have 100 subscribers. But once we get to that, subscribe, please. All right. We had somebody here that
Uh-oh, Kurt froze.
that's very good. So we can take a look at that. Okay, let me take a look over at the questions that came in via the Q&A. So one of them is, what are the best ways to keep people on your site? Blogs or albums or other things? So best way to keep people on your website.
Engaging content, give them the information that they're looking for. I think that the person who's asking is probably asking a little bit more about the actual tactic, like what you should use. We use blogs. We like how we can get them organized, and we're big on there's a lot of places that don't include the dates on their blogs. We like to include the dates on our blogs. It keeps us in check too, that as things get older, that we can easily remove them or update the information. So, I mean, just from a personal standpoint, I like keeping things fresh with blogs.
Sure.
So I have a little add-on to that. When we say blog, are we talking about a page on the site that is a blog, or are we talking like something over at Reddit or something like that?
We use it on the page. And so and throughout the presentation, that's what I was referring to every time I was talking about a blog. It's something that's on your page, because when people are searching for a topic, it doesn't necessarily have to be part of your core categories on your website, but it's an offshoot. It's a blog, and that'll show up in those search engine rankings as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Another question we have in Q&A is, how would you get the review option on my website?
There's several different ways to go about that. If you have a word, I'm unfortunately, I don't know what platform this particular person is using for their website, but if you have a WordPress website, for example, there are several plugins. So those are just basically extra applications that you can add to your website, and just copy a link directly from your Google My Business profile and input that into the plugin, and then it'll show up. That's, I think, probably the easiest way to go about it. Or you could add a button on your website. I'm not quite sure how familiar this person is with editing their website or anything in that regard, but adding a button on your website with a link that leads directly to their Google My Business profile where people can leave reviews is another way to go about that. So,
okay, good. Another Q&A question. What would you suggest doing if you hired someone to develop your website and none of their suggestions were put into place and the website is not showing up in searches? Well, I know what I do, but I'm going to let you guys answer that.
Okay, so am I understanding this correctly, that the client, the person who owns the website, gave feedback, but the person who built the website didn't take any of that into consideration, and the website is basically unfindable? Is that?
It looks like, I'll read it again. What would you do? What would you suggest doing if you hired someone to develop your website? So hired somebody to create a website, and none of these suggestions were put into place in the website. Well, none of the suggestions that you were talking about this morning were put into place, and the website is not showing up in any searches because they didn't do any of the good things that you suggested this morning.
I would personally get a hold of your username and your password, and a lot of the stuff that we talked about today is really not that difficult. It's time consuming, but I would start to make the repairs yourself. I mean, if having your website rank well is important to you, then they don't own your website. You own your website. So get your username and password, and just, if they host your website, obviously you want to tread lightly in case they're, I don't know. I mean, I personally, I wouldn't work with them anymore, but that's just me.
yeah, I agree.
I've ran into this. I can't tell you how many times as an SBDC consultant talking to people who hired a website developer, and I paid them, and then my website's up, but I want to make a change. I can't get a hold of them, or my website doesn't show up like this person suggested. And it is just kind of a sticky situation. For those of you who already have websites up and somebody working on it, my suggestion is to make sure that you own your own domain name yourself, and that you have the user and password to get into your website hosting platform, and take care of that, and block somebody out if you need to, and if you need to go to a different business to help you out. It's a sticky situation. It happens out there. For the person that asked this question, if you want to get a hold of me at the SBDC to talk about it a little bit further, you can sign up for services, and I'm available to help you go through that. Or if you want to reach out to PV Advertising, they have a paid for service, and they can certainly help you out with that as well. Another question in the Q&A. I had a client post a great review on GMB, Google My Business, but Google blocked it because it said there was something in the review Google didn't like. This has happened a few times. Any thoughts on that?
Have you come across that at all, Brianna, before? I have not seen that before.
Well, I guess, so I know the person who's asking the question, and if you wouldn't mind emailing me exactly what the the verbiage was. I'd like to see that, and maybe we could discuss it. I really can't answer that question just by knowing that Google blocked it. There must be something in there that happened, and that might make a little bit of, it might need a little bit of discovery time.
Yes.
I wonder if Google's thinking that is some kind of automated review platform or
Yeah,
something.
maybe they think it's a fake profile, or they're sending a profile from the same IP address that a review was sent before. But if it's happened several times, yeah, we'll have to do some discovery on that. But thanks for sending in that question.
Mhm.
So another question in the chat. For your Google business setup, should I create a new business-based Gmail account to set up my Google business, or use my personal Gmail account to create my business setup?
I don't think I personally haven't come across one or the other that works better. But if you'd like to use a particular business-based Google My Business email, I would suggest that. But I haven't come across anything that suggests that one or the other is better. But if you want to keep personal and business separate, then I would suggest having a business profile attached, or a business email attached to your business profile.
I would say that, just as a person who gets, how many emails do we get every day, and those inboxes get pretty full. And just this morning I was asking Caitlin for something, and she said, well, I already sent it to you. And sure enough, it was further down in my email. I just had to search a little bit further. I think it might be a good idea to have a separate Gmail account strictly for the business, and then have all that information go in there, so it's not in your personal account. That would be my personal recommendation, but it doesn't sound like it makes any difference to Google.
Nope, just as long as it's a Google email.
Okay. I'm not seeing anything else that is really pressing out there for questions. So I think we can wrap this up. Again, I want to just thank everybody for coming this morning, and especially thank you, Pearson Von Elb and Caitlin and Brianna and Melissa behind the scenes that have done this. Your presentation was excellent, and I'm really glad we got to answer some of these questions. So I wish everybody a great day. Thank you again for coming, and thank you, Caitlin and Brianna.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having us. It was
Yes,
a
thank you.
wonderful experience. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.